The morning of my medical board exam, I sat in my car outside the testing center and called my mom. She didn't pick up. I called my dad, straight to voicemail. I texted my sister. Boards today. Nervous. Just wanted to hear someone's voice. She replied 40 minutes later with a thumbs up emoji. I walked into that exam alone, passed it alone, and drove home alone. When I pulled into my apartment parking lot, my hands were shaking not from fear anymore, but from something I didn't have a name for yet. I sat there for a long time before I went inside. That was 3 years ago. And I want to tell you what happened after. My name is Rachel. I'm 31 years old, a physical therapist working at a rehabilitation clinic in Nashville. I have a one-bedroom apartment with a coffee maker I love more than most people, a rescue dog named Pepper, and a husband named Marcus, who still leaves notes in my coat pockets on cold mornings. My family, my parents, and my younger sister Danielle live 40 minutes away in the same suburb where I grew up. I say that not to make it sound close and warm. I say it because 40 minutes matters in this story. Let me go back further. Growing up, Danielle was the one. You know what I mean. She was the one my parents talked about at every dinner table, every family gathering, every phone call with relatives. Danielle got a call back. Danielle made the cheer squad. Danielle's boyfriend is taking her to Cabo. I don't say this with bitterness anymore. I say it as fact, the way you'd describe weather. It was just always that way. I was the responsible one. The quiet one. The one who got good grades without being celebrated for them, who worked 2 jobs through college without anyone asking how I was managing, who called home every Sunday not because they reminded me to, but because I genuinely wanted to stay connected. I told myself for years that responsible daughters don't need applause, that love isn't always loud, that my parents showed up in other ways. I kept moving that goalpost until I ran out of field. The first real crack happened 3 years ago during boards. I'd been studying for 8 months. Boards are not a small thing. They are the exam that determines whether you can actually practice. I told my parents about it in January. I reminded them in March. I sent my mom a calendar invite, which she confirmed she received, because she replied with, "Good luck, sweetheart," and a flower emoji. The morning of the exam, I called. Nothing. I found out later that Danielle had surprised them with a last-minute trip to Savannah that weekend. A girls' weekend. She'd called it her, my mom, my dad, her boyfriend. A bed and breakfast, ghost tours, a rooftop dinner. My mom texted me that Sunday evening. "How did boards go?" "We've had the most magical weekend. I'll tell you everything." I stared at that text for 3 minutes straight. I typed and deleted 4 different responses. What I finally sent was, "Passed. Talk soon." She sent back 5 celebration emojis, and then went quiet again. I didn't say anything about the phone calls. I didn't bring up the calendar invite. I told myself it wasn't a big deal, that I was an adult, that I didn't need my parents on the phone before a test like I was 12 years old. But here's the thing about swallowing things down: eventually there's no more room. The second crack happened 8 months later. I'd been dating Marcus for 2 years at that point. He proposed on a Tuesday evening in our apartment kitchen. Nothing fancy, no restaurant or speeches, just him on one knee with his grandmother's ring, and his voice cracking when he asked. I said yes, before he finished the sentence. Pepper barked at us from the couch. I called my mom that same night. "Mom, we're engaged." There was a pause, then, Oh, wow. Did he do something special?" "He proposed in our kitchen. It was perfect." Another pause. "Well, kitchen proposals are very in right now, I hear." I should have noticed the flatness in her voice right then. But I was happy, so I let it go. I told my dad. He said, "Good man. That Marcus." And immediately pivoted to asking if I'd seen the game. I told Danielle. She said, "Oh my gosh, congrats, we should celebrate," and then never followed up on that sentence. We set a date for the following October, 13 months out. More than enough time. I sent a save the date to everyone in February. My parents confirmed. Danielle confirmed. I spent the next several months planning a wedding. Not a lavish one. Marcus and I are practical people. A venue in East Nashville, 60 guests, A Saturday afternoon ceremony and dinner. Simple and Ors. My mom came to one dress appointment. She was 20 minutes late and spent most of it on her phone. When I came out in the dress I eventually bought, she looked up and said, "That's very you." I still don't know exactly what she meant by that. About 6 weeks before the wedding, Danielle called me. "So I have to tell you something," she said. My stomach dropped before she finished the sentence. I got offered a position in Seattle. It's a big deal, Rach. It's a senior coordinator role at this tech company, and the salary is some %. Danielle, the wedding is in 6 weeks. I know, and I want to be there. I really do. But the onboarding starts that week. They want me on the ground before the weekend. My wedding is on a Saturday. The onboarding is Friday through Sunday. I sat with that for a moment. Can you negotiate the dates? I already asked. They said the cohort schedule is locked. I didn't say anything. Rach, come on. This is my career. You of all people should understand that. I understood, she said. I of all people should understand. Because I'd spent years making myself easy to leave behind, and everyone had gotten very comfortable with that. Okay, I said. Okay as in you're mad, or okay as in I heard you. We hung up. 2 days later, my mom called. I just talked to Danielle, she said. I want you to know we're so proud of her. I waited. Your father and I have been talking. We think we should fly out to Seattle that same weekend. Help her settle in. You know how she gets anxious in new places. The room got very quiet. Mom, I said carefully, my wedding is that weekend. We'll celebrate you when we get back, sweetheart. A nice dinner, just the 4 of us. Or 6, with Marcus and his mom. You're going to miss my wedding. Honey, this is Danielle's first time living across the country. She needs us. I need you at my wedding. There was a pause that I will remember for the rest of my life. Rachel, my mom said, in a voice like she was explaining something obvious to someone slow. You have Marcus. Danielle doesn't have anyone out there yet. I didn't cry. I wanted to, but I didn't. I see, I said. We'll make it up to you, I promise. A nice dinner. I heard you, Mom. I hung up. Marcus found me sitting on the kitchen floor with Pepper 20 minutes later. He didn't ask questions. He just sat down next to me and stayed there. Tell me honestly, he said eventually. If your positions were reversed, if it was my family doing this, what would you tell me? I looked at him. I'd tell you to stop trying to earn people who've already decided what you're worth. He nodded slowly. So what are you going to do? I went to my own wedding. I want to say that plainly, because some people might wonder. I didn't cancel it. I didn't spiral. I put on that dress. I walked down that aisle with my college roommate Tess on one side and Marcus's uncle on the other, and I married the man I love in front of 60 people who actually showed up. But I want to tell you about the seats. Marcus and I had reserved the first 2 rows on my side for family. We'd labeled them. We'd printed little cards. Every single seat was empty. Not because no one cared about me. Tess had filled the rows behind them. My coworkers, friends from grad school, neighbors. The room was full. But those first 2 rows sat there the entire ceremony, white chairs with little ivory ribbons, quiet as a statement. Our officiant, a warm older woman named Carol, paused just slightly when she reached, "Who gives this woman?" and then recovered gracefully and moved on. I will always be grateful to her for that. During the reception, someone's phone connected to the Bluetooth speaker by the DJ booth. I don't know whose it was or how it happened. The DJ was mortified, said it connected automatically, that it had never done that before. But for about 15 seconds, before anyone realized, the speakers in the room were playing audio from what sounded like an airport. My father's voice, clear as anything. Danielle, gate B12, hurry up. The DJ cut it immediately. There was a brief silence in the room. Marcus took my hand under the table. Squeezed once. I looked out at my guests, all these people who had driven hours, rearranged schedules, bought gifts, shown up, and I thought, these are my people. I smiled at Carol across the room. She smiled back. We danced until 11. The text started while we were on our honeymoon. Mom, hope you're having a wonderful time. Danielle is getting settled. Her apartment is adorable. Can't wait to do our dinner when you're back. Dad, congrats, kid. Marcus is a good one. Call when you're home. I read them both. I didn't respond. We came home from our honeymoon on a Sunday. The following Friday, my mom called. I let it go to voicemail. She left a cheerful 3-minute message about a restaurant she'd found, and how she thought we should all do Saturday brunch. I didn't call back. I need you to understand something. I didn't go silent to punish them. I went silent because I genuinely did not know what I would say. Every time I started mentally drafting a conversation, here's how what you did hurt me, here's what I needed from you, here's why I can't just go to brunch and pretend I got to the same place. They would apologize in a surface way, my mom would cry. My dad would say something like, what's done is done. And 3 weeks later we'd be back to talking about Danielle. I'd had that conversation 100 times in smaller versions throughout my life. I was tired of having it. So I didn't. 4 months of quiet. My mom tried a few more times. My dad sent one long text that surprised me, more reflective than I expected. Something about how he knew they hadn't always made me feel like a priority, and that he was sorry. I read it 4 times. I saved it. I didn't respond. Danielle called once. She left a voicemail that was mostly about her new job, her new apartment, a farmer's market she'd found. And then at the end, Mom says you're not returning calls. I hope you're okay. Not, I know why you're hurt. Not, what we did was wrong. Just, I hope you're okay. I filed that away too. Then, 5 months after my wedding, Danielle called again. I'm engaged, she said. Congratulations, I said. And I meant it. I genuinely did. This wasn't about Danielle's happiness. His name is Connor. He's wonderful. You'd really like him. I'm glad you found him. A beat. We're doing the ceremony in Nashville, next April. I really want you there, Rach. I didn't say anything. I know things have been weird, Danielle said. I know you're upset about the wedding. And I'm sorry I missed it. I am. I need my sister there. Please. I'll think about it, I said. I did think about it. For about 3 weeks, I thought about almost nothing else. Marcus and I had long conversations about it on the couch after dinner, Pepper asleep between us. You don't owe them anything, Marcus said one night. But you also don't owe yourself a war. What do you actually want? What I wanted, I realized, wasn't revenge. It wasn't an apology, though I deserved one. What I wanted was to be seen. To have the people who shaped me finally understand what they had treated as unimportant. I had spent 30 years hoping they'd figure it out on their own. Maybe it was time to stop hoping and start showing. I called Danielle back. I'll come, I said. She exhaled. Thank you. Seriously. Mom is going to be so relieved. Danielle. I kept my voice calm. I'm coming for you, not for them. And I need you to understand that when I'm there, I'm going to be honest. If someone asks me about last October, I'm not going to pretend. A pause. What does that mean? It means I'm done performing happiness I don't feel. It means if someone asks why I seem distant, I'll tell them. Gently. Honestly. That's the only version of me available. Another pause. Okay, she said quietly. I hear you. She didn't argue. That surprised me. April arrived. The wedding was at a garden venue outside Nashville, the kind with string lights and a pergola and a cocktail hour under oak trees. It was genuinely beautiful. Danielle looked genuinely beautiful. Connor looked at her the way Marcus looks at me, and for a moment standing in the back of that garden, I felt a real, uncomplicated happiness for her. I had gotten dressed carefully that morning. My dress was burgundy. Not a statement, not a costume. I genuinely loved it when I saw it in the store. But Marcus raised an eyebrow when I walked out and I said, I know, and he smiled and said, You look incredible, and we left it at that. When I walked in, my mother spotted me from across the room. I watched her face move through 3 expressions in about 2 seconds. I smiled at her. She smiled back, but her eyes stayed tight. My father hugged me. It was a real hug, the kind he used to give me when I was a kid and had done something he was proud of. I let myself have that for a second. "You look beautiful," he said, and his voice was rough in a way I hadn't expected. "Thank you, Dad." I found my seat. Relatives I hadn't seen in months came to hug me. A few asked where I'd been. I said, "It's been a complicated year," and I left it at that. But then my aunt, my mother's sister Patricia, 70 years old and constitutionally unable to leave well enough alone, sat down next to me during cocktail hour, patted my hand, and said, "I'm so glad you're here. I know your parents were so worried you wouldn't come after skipping your cousin's graduation party last spring." I turned to look at her. "I didn't skip the graduation party," I said pleasantly. "I was planning my wedding, which my parents didn't attend." Aunt Patricia blinked. "Well, they had to help Danielle with her move. They chose to go to Seattle on my wedding day," I said. Still pleasant. Still completely calm. My father's voice came through the speakers at my reception because his phone connected to the Bluetooth system at the airport. 60 people in the room heard it. The table had gone quiet. I looked around at the faces: my aunt, 2 cousins, a family friend I'd known since childhood. "I love my sister," I said. "I'm genuinely happy she found Connor. And I'm here because she asked me to be here. But I'm not going to pretend that the last 18 months didn't happen. I think everyone at this table probably already knows the whole story. So let's not tell a different one." No one said anything. I picked up my glass of sparkling water and took a sip. My mother found me near the end of cocktail hour. She looked older than she had in October. Or maybe I was just looking more carefully. "Rachel," she said. Her voice was low. "Hi, Mom. Patricia told me what you said. I figured she would. This is your sister's wedding." "I know. I'm here." She looked at me, really looked, the way she hadn't in a long time. "What is it that you want from us? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry we weren't there. Are you happy now?" I thought about that question for a long time before I answered. "Mom," I said, "I stopped wanting an apology about 2 months in. What I needed was for someone to understand that what you did wasn't just an inconvenience. You sat in an airport while my father of the bride's seat was empty. While I walked down an aisle alone. While your grandchildren someday will ask for a photo of my family on my wedding day, and there won't be one." Her eyes were wet. "I needed the people who made me to be there for the biggest day of my life so far. And you chose not to be." I kept my voice gentle, not cold gentle. "An apology isn't going to give me those photographs back." She was quiet for a long time. "I don't know how to fix it," she finally said, and for the first time in this conversation, she sounded real. "I don't either," I said honestly. "But I think we start by not pretending." She nodded slowly. Her chin was trembling. "I did something then that I hadn't planned." I reached out and held her hand for a moment. "I'm here," I said. "For Danielle. And maybe if we're both willing to be honest, we can figure out the rest eventually. But I can't do it if we keep covering things up." She squeezed my hand. Didn't say anything. We stood there for a minute in the garden, under the oak trees with the string lights beginning to glow as the sun went down. I danced at Danielle's reception. I watched my sister and Connor have their first dance, and I felt genuinely glad. I sat at a table with Marcus and 2 of Danielle's college friends, and we laughed more than I expected to. Aunt Patricia avoided me, which was honestly a relief. Near the end of the night, Danielle found me, by the edge of the dance floor. She didn't say anything at first. She just stood next to me and watched the room. "I should have been there," she said. "At your wedding." "Yeah," I said. The job was real. The timing was real. But I didn't fight hard enough to change it. She paused. I think I'd gotten so used to things defaulting to what was easiest for me that I didn't even question it. I looked at her. "That's a really honest thing to say. I've been in therapy for 7 months," she said, and then laughed a little, and I laughed too. We stood there for another minute. "I'm not ready to be all the way back," I told her. "Just so you know. I want to get there. But I need it to be real." "Okay," she said. "Real. I can do real." Connor came and swept her back onto the dance floor, and I watched my sister spin under the string lights in her wedding dress, and I thought about all the versions of this story I could be telling: the bitter one, the broken one, the one where I never showed up at all. I chose this one. Marcus and I drove home with the windows down. Nashville in April at midnight, warm enough to feel like a promise. "How do you feel?" he asked. I thought about it. "Like I put something down," I said. "Something I'd been carrying for a really long time. Good heavy or bad heavy? Both. Mostly good, now." He reached over and held my hand on the gear shift. I looked out the window at the city lights. "Here is what I want you to take from this. I did not get a perfect ending. My parents are not transformed people. The empty chairs at my wedding are still in every memory I have of that day. I don't have a photo of my father walking me down the aisle. But I stopped waiting for people to choose me, and I started choosing myself. I showed up at my sister's wedding, not because everything was fixed, but because I had decided who I wanted to be, regardless of whether they figured out who they should have been. I wore burgundy. I told the truth. I danced. And when Marcus and I got home that night, Pepper was asleep by the door, and there was a sticky note on the bathroom mirror that said, "You were the most beautiful woman in that room, and I've never been more proud of you." He'd left it before we went. That's the kind of love worth protecting. If you are sitting somewhere right now, thinking about a family that has made you feel invisible, I want you to know something. The weight you're carrying has a name, and you're allowed to put it down. What would you have done? Would you have gone to that wedding? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. There's a version of this story where I stayed angry, where I wore that anger into every room, let it sit at every table, let it be the first thing people sensed when they looked at me. I understand that version. I lived close to it for a long time. But here's what I've come to understand about the way actions and consequences actually work. Not as punishment handed down by some outside force, but as the simple, honest math of how we treat people and what that eventually costs us. My parents chose, repeatedly and consciously, to make my sister the center of their world. That wasn't an accident. It was a pattern built over decades, one small decision at a time, until the day it became large enough that 60 people in a room could see the empty chairs it created. They didn't lose my trust on my wedding day. They spent years making small withdrawals from an account they never thought to check. The wedding was just the morning they found out the balance was gone. What Rachel did, what I did, wasn't revenge. It was clarity. There's a real difference between those two things, and I think it matters. Revenge wants the other person to suffer. Clarity just wants to stop pretending. I walked into my sister's wedding in a burgundy dress, and I told the truth at a cocktail table, and I held my mother's hand in a garden, and I said, "I'm not going to keep covering this up." That's not cruelty. That's the only honest ground two people can actually build something on. The intelligence part is this. You have to be willing to see your situation as it actually is, not as you wish it were. For years I was very smart about everything, except my own family. I could diagnose a patient, manage a caseload, navigate a hospital system, and I could not look clearly at a pattern that had been in front of me my entire life. Wisdom isn't just knowledge. It's the courage to apply what you know to the things that are hardest to look at directly. The resilience part is simpler and harder. You keep going anyway. You put on the dress. You walk down the aisle with your college roommate on one side and your husband's uncle on the other. You dance at your own reception. You show up at your sister's wedding not because everything is fixed, but because you have decided who you want to be regardless of whether anyone else has figured out who they should have been. Nobody gives you that. You build it one decision at a time, in ordinary moments, when no one is watching and there's no reward for doing the right thing except the quiet knowledge that you did it. Marcus left a note on the mirror before we even left for that wedding. He didn't know how the night would go. He just knew who I was. That kind of love, the kind that shows up before the outcome is decided, is what you protect when you finally stop shrinking yourself to fit spaces that were never built for you. The chairs were empty, and I danced anyway.